Evan Roberts has been saying it to this microphone, or at least the one Sean's sitting at now, our microphones, that the New York Giants were going to select Shedeur Sanders. I got so tired of him hearing it, and I knew it wasn't going to happen, that he made a bet with me that if the Giants did not take Shedeur Sanders, I got to make a show decision. Now, remember, show decisions are a big part of what we do here.
Oh, yeah.
About a year and 4 months ago, Sean got to make a show decision when he bested Evan Roberts in a game of pickleball. It was highly contested. It was ugly. It was not something you want to show your grandkids. But Sean won, and his show decision was to hang the A-Rod Day banner, February 16th, 2024.
Retired his number, baby.
We retired A-Rod's number 13 in the Mike Francesa studio here at WFAN. So today, because Evan was wrong, and all you Giant fans, you get a room, 2 rooms, full of Giant fans talking about the draft yesterday. Evan is being banned from this show until I deem otherwise.
Benched, baby. He's benched.
You will not hear Evan's voice until I'm done talking about the New York Giants. The Jets drafted a lineman that we all knew they were going to draft, so they were boring. Maybe we'll get to them a little bit later. We'll get to the Knicks, obviously, as well. But Evan Roberts' voice will not be heard until I say it's okay.
Now, will that be an hour? Will that be 2 hours? Will that be 2 weeks? That's up to Tiki Barber and something we'll figure out along the way. So, Tiki, here we go. The draft board went according to plan, at least picks 1, 2, and 3, although it was the Jaguars obviously picking 2 with that massive trade to go get your guy, Travis Hunter.
Yes.
But the Giants at number 3 overall don't even let the clock tick down and show, are we still deciding? Is there indecision? They hand in that card and announced was Abdul Carter, edge rusher, Penn State, who plenty had as the best player in the draft, or at least a 1B to Travis Hunter. The Giants, more on the quarterback in a second. Let's just start off with how the night started. Stuck to their board and walked out of here with one of the 2 best players in the draft.
Yeah, and that's all you could ask for. But real quickly, just to go back to the Cleveland Browns briefly. So you know who I wanted. I wanted Travis Hunter. I told you guys this yesterday. In an ideal world, the Giants draft Travis Hunter. He's a generational type talent. You figure out how you utilize him on both sides of the ball, but it is a unbelievable problem to have. And so I wanted Travis Hunter because he's going to change the face of the game, right? He's going to be one of those guys that we'll look at a decade from now and say, remember when Travis Hunter came in and decided to do this, play on offense and on defense? And then the second part of my ideal day was trade back in and draft Jackson Dart.
Yep.
So as soon as the Cleveland Browns, this happened right after our show. I was driving on the turnpike home to rush home to get home before the draft. And to get a note, the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Browns made a deal with, who did they make a deal with? I forget who it was, but they made a deal to get 6th-round picks, and it was just something innocuous. It felt really back down the draft that nobody was going to pay attention to. And immediately I said, they're trading that pick. They're setting themselves up to trade that second pick, and I knew it was for someone to come get Travis Hunter. Yeah. And so as soon as it happened on draft day or draft time, when the Cleveland Browns made the deal with the Jacksonville Jaguars, I knew my dream of Travis Hunter was over. With that being said, I am perfectly happy with Abdul Carter, because Abdul Carter, coming into this Giant defense where the Giants have spent the majority of their free agency and their energy over the last couple of years in their draft status last year with both Tyler Nubin and Drew Phillips, I think that the Giants, by drafting Abdul Carter, can finally have an identity at something. Just think about what the identity has been or not been over the last couple of years. Even when Saquon was an elite player, it wasn't really their identity.
Right, but that's what they tried to bank on. Remember, that was something we saw in Hard Knocks, was the front office going, well, what's going to be our identity if Saquon leaves? And they didn't have one last year.
They didn't have an answer. And so now you have an answer. They are going to get after the passer, Abdul Carter, with Kayvon Thibodeau, with Banks.
Yep.
They are with a pretty good linebacking core, with really good defensive back system now with Paulson and Debo coming over.
Even the kid Golston they signed from Dallas.
Exactly. So we know what the identity is going to be, and that gives me some hope. Now the schedule's hard and everything else it's got to all fall into place.
Sure.
But from a people standpoint, Like the guys with the jerseys, names on the back of their jerseys, I like what the identity is shaping up to be for the New York Giants after drafting Abdul Carter with the third pick, because he has a chance to be one of those perennial Pro Bowl type players.
Think about all the knocks that Giants fans have had to hear about their organization the last couple of years. What's their identity? No identity. We just tackled that. Ferocious defense, pass rush. Not enough talent, not enough great players. I don't know, Tiki. Obviously, jury's out. Anything could happen with Abdul Carter. But if he is as slam dunk a prospect as everybody thinks, and you add that with Malik Neighbors the year before, and all the other talent that they've infused, suddenly you look up, and where we had this conversation even a week ago, how much better is the team now than when Dave Gettleman left it? I am now, for the first time in 4 years, after last night, staring at a roster which obviously is still incomplete.
Right.
But in terms of high-end talented players, Dexter Lawrence, Andrew Thomas, Abdul Carter, Malik Neighbors, today I could say as a Giant fan, truly, without faking it, I'm proud again to be a fan of the New York Football Giants. There's something to be excited about next year with the New York Football Giants, and it is going to be the calling card of this defense. So I'm proud. Now,
the only thing that matters is you still got to score points.
So let's get to that. We saw all the smoke yesterday leading up, like the Jackson Dart stuff all of a sudden just engulfed us all to the point we thought, and Evan thought this to start the show yesterday, it's got to be smoke. Why would they be? Why would Carson Shane be Instagram storying the Jackson Dart stuff? How would suddenly Todd McShay and Daniel Jeremiah and all these mock drifters suddenly be putting Jackson Dart in there? I panicked for a moment last night briefly, Tiki.
Why?
For a brief moment.
Why?
When the Jaguar and Brown trade went down, past Giant draft situations, desperation, quarterback, and everything, would have saw the Browns move to 5 and go, wait a minute, now the Browns are not going to get Travis Hunter. Are they going to take a quarterback at 5? And then by doing that, do I need to make sure I get my quarterback and sit there and take one at 3? There was a moment, even if it didn't make any sense, that I sat there and said, don't do it. Yeah. Don't give up Abdul Carter.
Don't get baited.
Don't get baited. And they didn't. And that made me relieved. Now, as far as the night went on, and the slide happens, and Shedeur Sanders is sitting there, still sitting there.
Yes.
Jackson Dart is sitting. The Saints say no thanks. The Steelers. To both. When you got to the Steeler pick, I said, well, one's coming off, and maybe this is Shane's plan. We'll take whoever's left.
Yes.
The Steelers pass. And my eyes lit up. And I said, well, what the hell are they going to have to give up?
You knew at that point, when the Steelers passed on QB, because nobody else needed one, you knew the Giants were...
And then the driver's seat...
They were either sitting there waiting for whoever falls to them, which they could have if they wanted to get Shedeur Sanders, because I think the Rams were likely going to jump up and go get
that's part
Jackson Dart. But either way, you knew that the Giants were coming away with first-round pick, second-round pick, with an elite blue-chip player. And a quarterback.
The opposite of what they did in the Daniel Jones draft, where everybody wanted to draft Josh Hines-Allen and then wait on the quarterback and do that. So everybody that killed the Giants that night, just learn, the Giants didn't make that same mistake tonight.
They did.
So they go and they make that trade, and here's the cost. You trade pick 34, which is just a swap. You're swapping 25 for 34, and you're giving up your second, your compensatory pick for Xavier McKinney, the later third-round pick, not the first one in the draft, and your third-rounder next year. To me, Tiki, we had all the
steal, dude.
All the discussions last year about trading up for a franchise quarterback. That price to pay is nothing if you believe in the quarterback.
And I think
nothing.
And I think they did. Look, they had all of these guys in. Jalen Milroe they had in. Jackson Dart they had in. Shedeur Sanders they had in. These are all post their team workouts at their facility, and obviously post combine, where most of them really didn't do anything, especially Shedeur. So they've done their deep dive diligence on all of them. And so when it came down to it, you've all seen the videos, at least if you're Giant fans, of Joe Shane calling Jackson Dart and Dave's calling Jackson Dart. And, you've seen the post-draft analysis of what's going to happen. That is, Russell Wilson is the starter.
Yep.
And we talked about this yesterday briefly. I'll recap quickly. Russell Wilson's here for a year. Russell Wilson thinks he's the savior coming here for the New York Giants. He's not. He's here for a year to win some games. The guy who's going to groom the young player is going to be that locker room energy for that young player quarterback is Jameis Winston.
Right.
And so, but Jackson Dart now gets put into a situation where he doesn't really have to play. Do I think we'll see him at some point? I do, actually. This might be a replay of the Eli moment.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Come and play Russell Wilson for 7, 8 weeks, 9 weeks, whatever it may be. depending on what the record is, hell, it didn't matter when Eli went 2004.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you.
We had a winning record.
If they have a winning record, knowing what's on the line and all the losing, do you think they would go to
So
Dart?
much of it is going to depend on what Dart is handling and how forward he is advancing each and every week. Because I know this just from experience with Eli. They gave him everything. It wasn't like, hey, Eli, we're gonna baby you along here. Take a little bit of this playbook, learn this, master this. All right, here it is. It's all here. Go if you learn it, we'll give you a shot. And ultimately, they did. It was rough because he struggled, and we lost a bunch of games in a row until he finally figured it out at the end. And then he just exponentially took off. We won 10 games the following year.
But it did set the Giants up.
It set the Giants up for success. And so I could see that happening again. I'm not predicting that's going to happen, but I could see that happening. We know that Jackson Dart is a talent. We know he's got a lot to learn, obviously.
Yeah.
I heard Gio this morning going crazy because he thinks he's I don't know, what do you say, puffy or something?
Pudgy. I guess Phil Simms had called him pudgy.
Pudgy, whatever it is.
And by the way, I don't care what I don't care what high school he went to.
Can you ball?
Right. Exactly.
He's a pudgy Utah clapper.
Can you ball? That's all I care about. And by the way, I don't know if he can ball on the NFL level. But then again, nobody knows if anybody can ball on the NFL level until you get a chance to play the NFL game.
Exactly. Look, I know Tommy's a lot like me. We watch a lot of college football on Saturdays, and I know there's plenty of the audience out there that does as well, but not everybody does, right? College football's not centrally a big-time New York area sport. I don't like Jackson Dart, the quarterback prospect, but I'm also wrong a ton on these quarterback prospects.
Why don't you like him?
Okay, here's what I don't like about him. In several big games and several big moments over the last 2 years, and everybody will point to the Florida game when Ole Miss played Florida this year with a chance to make the college football playoff.
Right.
Jackson Dart, for all his athletic traits, the running, the physical runs, he could throw on a dart, 50 yards down the field, tight window throws, all of that.
No pun intended.
But when the game gets stressful, and he's admitted this, I think he admitted this in the video with Gruden, he makes some panic throws. Triple coverage, double coverage. He threw a couple horrendous interceptions. And that was kind of the moral of the story on why Ole Miss didn't make a college football playoff. It's they are so good, and you're humming with that Lane Kiffin offense, and Jackson Dart is doing amazing things. But, man, he has a couple of these fourth-quarter meltdowns, and I always look at that as, the clutch barometer.
Right, the pressure.
The pressure. He didn't handle, I thought, some of the pressure and clutch moments for whatever reason well at Ole Miss, and I think that's a major red flag to me.
Of course.
However.
But go ahead.
I was just going to say, however, as much as I view that, if you're banking on traits and Brian Dable's traits, and you've heard a lot of the Josh Allen comparisons, right? Big physical runner, the completions, all that stuff. I look at this and I say, I would not have been okay and comfortable if Brian Dable had an exodus from this Giants situation without ever getting to identify and take a quarterback that fits his traits and what he wants.
Yeah.
And the Giants not only accomplished that last night, whether I agree with the pick or not, they did that. They traded minimally to do that.
Right. Their second and two-thirds.
Two-thirds.
Don't forget, there were other trades that were much more than that.
And still have the first pick of the third round tonight.
Yes.
Okay. And they walked out with the blue chip pass rusher, no matter what. And no matter what happens now this year, Tiki, because this thing could go a million different ways. If the Giants have a horrendous year and Jackson Dart is, when he gets in there and plays and they bring in a new regime and they're picking top 5 again, if that regime wants to take a quarterback, nothing the Giants did last night, including taking Jackson Dart, because they'll have picks 1 and 2 next year, stops them from starting over and taking a quarterback.
Right.
This is not a franchise setting back decision.
That's interesting you
by
put it that
trading
way.
up to 25. So to me, best case scenario takes off, and they actually identified a developmental, we're going to take him at 25, fifth-year option's important. Brian Dable gets his guy. They win enough games with defense. The regime keeps their jobs. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, if they have both their first and second round pick next year, and a new regime could take a quarterback and a quarterback rich drift that they want, and so what? You trade Jackson Dart for a third round pick in a year.
Right, or he just sits there and it just doesn't do it.
It
doesn't matter.
It's not a franchise crippling move.
You reset. Now, the reason I'm okay with this is this is part of why this was my ideal scenario yesterday. There was one quarterback, and he went number 1 overall, that was probably going to be ready to play right away.
Cam Ward.
That is it. Got tons. Incarnate Word, he was at where he played well. Transfers to Washington State when his coach left Incarnate Word to go there, so he followed him. He knew he needed another year because his pre-draft ranking before last season was maybe mid-third round. So he needed another year of development. He goes to Miami. He explodes, has a ridiculous... he was ready to be an NFL quarterback or learn what it takes. Everybody else is flawed.
Yep.
everybody else. I don't care if that's Shedeur Sanders, obviously, because he didn't even go in the first round. Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Tyler Shuck. All these guys, all these kids are flawed. There's something wrong with them. But to your point, I think Dabes saw something in Jackson Dart that he can work with.
Yeah.
And that's all you want. Just work with him. He's not going to be perfect. But guess what? Josh Allen wasn't perfect either. Not even close leaving Wyoming. His completion percentage was less than 60%.
Which is why he wasn't even a top 3 quarterback taken in that draft.
60% and less than 60% in college. That's an indictment.
Versus bad opponents when you're playing at Wyoming.
Exactly. And look where Josh Allen is right now. And so you either have to have faith in Dabes and his ability to do what he was hired to do 3 seasons ago now, but he was hired to do this. Now he gets a chance to do it. And now if you're wrong that he's really not that good at building or grooming a quarterback, developing a quarterback, getting them to make the right decisions, etc., then you made the wrong decision 4 years ago, but now at least we can find out why.
Exactly. And you still got Abdul Carter out of it. So Giants fans, last night, no matter what, with all the negativity that's existed around this franchise, they can officially establish an identity on defense, and they now can go to bed at night knowing Brian Dable has a quarterback he believes in. We'll get your reaction next, 888-808-1019.
Real quick. By the way, the reason you're not hearing Evan and you're hearing Sean is because I made a show decision because Evan was so wrong about Shedeur Sanders that it started to anger me. And so I made a show decision that he's banned from this show until I say otherwise.
And that may not be enough punishment, considering the fact that Shedeur Sanders is exactly where Evan Roberts is right now, on the bench waiting to work.
Exactly.